Hey guys, and welcome back to the Workbench Journal. Where did I last leave off? Well, I remember telling you I was working on the main gear well, and I was working on the nose gear and the cockpit and stuff. Well, I got all that taken care of. Glued it in, gave it a day to set. It was a long battle once I started gluing the fuselage together. So, without further ado, let's talk about where I last left off and onto the assembling of the fuselage. So, let's get this ball rolling. Everything's been glued in, gave it a day to dry, set, cure, it's all set. I started assembling. This is where the tough part is with this kit. Now, Monogram's plastic on their kits is well known for being slightly warped to massively warped. Fortunately, this one wasn't bad at all. However, from my past experiences of building this kit, I started in a different section, and I still got a little bit to learn from the last time. So, let's get down to it. Well, I start off the wings here, as you can see here. There's very little, if any, steps, very little, if any, gaps. I still got a few spots I gotta re-glue and clamp down again, but most of it consisted of using the liquid cement, this was my weapon of choice here for the Monogram kit. Usually I use the Tamaya extra thin, but this time around I need something a little more hot. Formula was a little more hot as per se. And of course I use clamps throughout the entire process. These work great. So this is where I was. Worked on the underside of the wings, glued a section at a time, not rushing through. Glue, 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 glue. Gave it time to fully dry and cure, which made life a lot easier. Once that was ready, I started working on the front end of the fuselage. The last time I built this was the bane of my existence, but this time around, I got lucky. Because even though I had to force everything down with clamps and tape and rubber bands and stuff, I got very lucky. There's very, very little gaps, as you can see here. There's a slight step in this section, but I can always fill that in with putty or surface primer. But the rest of the front fuselage half, the most I'm going to need is a little bit of sanding. And you can tell here the intakes are the colors are a little different as compared to this. I'll get to that in a little bit. Once that was taken care of, I turned my attention to the rear end of the fuselage. This is the toughest part of the kit, mainly because the plastic tends to think in its own direction. So I had to do a lot of gluing, a lot of patience. I still have a little bit of a step on the right side. Lesson learned. I'm probably going to, next time, if I build a Monogram kit, more than likely I will, use some styrene strip on the upper half so it'll be more rounded and fit. I still got a slight step here. Once again, a little bit of putty will fix that. Once I got all that, I moved on to the intakes and into the fueling receptacle. I jumped the gun a little bit on the intakes because I had to paint the insides. And I forgot, I wasn't supposed to prime the intakes on the outside. So I had to get some lacquer thinner or some paint remover to strip that away, glue it into place. The reason why I stripped the primer away in those sections, pretty simple. Primer acts as a barrier, especially when you're gluing. So I figured it was going to give me a hard time in trying to glue everything together, especially filling and sanding. So I took care of that. Painted, like I said, painting the inside with the airframe color, which I'll explain more in the next video or after puttying, priming, and everything to go. Glued them into place. I've had mixed experiences with the intakes on this kit. Some of them didn't require putty at all. Sometimes required massive putty. Sometimes at a step. Well, this time around, took my time. Took care of everything. The intakes were not a problem after that. But otherwise, the majority of the airframe assembly, ready to go. I'm giving it some time. I still got some odds and ends I gotta re-glue because the seams gave, but that won't be too much of a problem, So that's good news. Most I'm gonna need is a little bit of surface primer and putty in some major spots, but it shouldn't be a hassle. Tail fin. Learned my lesson on this. I should have put a styrene strip in here to keep, because I got a step here, but I'm gonna have to sand that part. It is kind of weird to begin with. I'll fill this in. Otherwise, Everything went together fine. Put it aside to dry. Set, of course. Took care of that. Focused my work on the landing gear. Landing gear was painted in stainless steel from the now long defunct Polyscale railroad line. It's a shame that Polyscale is no longer around because they made some great paints. I painted it in stainless steel this time. Usually I'll use aluminum depending on the time, the era, and the time frame of what the aircraft are representing. I know some people are going to say, why steel? Well, I used the stainless steel because it's not as shiny. It's a little shade darker than aluminum. But also, it reduces the shininess, which will reduce the toy-like appearance, which is the result right here. This is the main gear. Painted these, as you tell, gives more, in my opinion, gives a more realistic look. I still got to paint some odds and ends, brake line, and the oleos and everything. Then once that's good, mask the tires, spray black on them, ready to go. Worked on the missiles a bit. I actually mentioned that I was going to pilfer the missiles. What did I do with them? Ah, there they are. I pilfered the missiles from a trumpeter because I lost the missiles from the Monogram kit. So, but I still got the decals for it. I'll be using semi-active radar guided for the front two, and infrared for the rear two. I'm also adding the Genie nuclear missile. I also pilfered that from the trumpeter kit. I still have it from the Monogram kit, but it's not as detailed as this one. So going with this standard selection. The era I'm depicting of the F-106 didn't have the 20mm gun yet. So I'm sticking with the nuclear missile, although after 1973, the F-106 no longer carried the nuclear missile, which is a sigh of relief for aircrews, but it's also another reason is there's no more bomber formations during that time. Change of tactics, low-level bombing, so on and so forth. Google, read, whatever. Otherwise, everything's ready. I also did the fuel tanks. The fuel tanks were actually easier this time. Last time I built assembled the fuel tanks on the F-106 kit, I built the latest boxing, so plastic was, for some reason, on the fuel tanks were real warped. Why, I don't know, but I had no troubles, no hassles. This is the result. No gaps. I think a little bit of putty work, some sanding. They'll be just fine and they'll be ready. I did toy with the idea of cutting the fuel tanks off the pylons and just putting the pylons on, but nah. Too much work, and less work the better, as far as I'm concerned. Right now, this is just an update of how far I've progressed. I've still got a lot of work to do. I'm hoping I can focus, once I get everything puttied, primed, I can focus on the weapons bay, the missiles, the landing gear doors. I can actually do the smaller doors for the ram air turbine and the formation light. And once it's ready, We'll move on to the priming, then we'll move on to the paint. And in between, I started running around looking for like stenciling and stuff, because even though I do have basic stenciling, I'm still a little leery on it. I got liquid decal film, so if I'm worried that I'm worried if it's going to crack on me, because these are old decals, these are old micro scale. I got the liquid decal film, so it was less likely. As you can tell, I'm be using these. This is an earlier area, 1973. But I did find an old Aeromaster sheet that I had to use, which is right here. It's got all the stenciling I need if I don't want to use the stenciling in that. It seems to be more appropriate for what I want to build. So we'll talk about that next time. But this is my quick update. I'll keep you guys posted. I might make a lot more progress soon after. Who knows? So next video will be up hopefully soon, and I'll have more progress made. So happy modeling. Take it easy, guys, and I will talk to you again soon. Have fun.